back a little bit on the issue of building your party. It seems your strategy is to build it from the top, and yet for a political party to have roots, you need to have it at the grassroots. And therefore, if you're missing out in the ongoing election of councillors, where is the foundation of your party, Mr. Kabuleta?
No, the thing is, I'm not missing out because we are going to have councillors, but a lot of these things, elections in Africa are logistical, okay? There's only one party which has one party in the whole country which is going to have representation at all levels, and that's because they are using state resources, okay? And they have had the control of state resources for 40 years. Now, if they did not have, that would be a totally different issue. So now, when somebody is not in control of state resources, you only reach as far as your resources can enable you to reach. So we are not going to compete with those people like that. But let them go ahead, because what I find, of course, what I know for sure is that, and I was seeing all the battles for SEC positions in NRM and what, and I'm saying that this is a party that is dying, that will die with its owner, and they're fighting over a carcass, because it will be the same as KANU, as all the other parties which built themselves on the back of state privilege, state resources. As soon as they get out of power, they die, and that is true of almost all of them. I can mention so many across the continent. So it's not going to be an issue. So I was seeing people fighting and making a lot of noise and what. I'm saying, you're fighting over a carcass. In a short while, NRM is going to be a carcass. In a very, very short time. So, and yet the amount of money and the energy and what spent in there, because NRM cannot survive without its headline. Who is the president? It cannot. So? It is not based on any ideology. There's nothing NRM stands for. I want you to, you call even its leader
Pan-Africanism.
But what is Pan-Africanism? What's Pan-Africanism?
Unity.
Because unity. First of all, that's very laughable, because the biggest divider of anything in the world, not in Uganda, in the world, is Museveni. Museveni has just split everything, every tribe, every what. He goes splitting. If there are two people seated together, he will come and split them. The one thing he does, he has split the country into, all these districts and all that, because he believes, when people come together, they become more of a threat. So he believes in splitting. So of course, unity is not there. But my point is this: there is nothing.
He talks against sectarianism. We hear him from time to time. So he can't be the one promoting.
You have to know the difference between what Museveni says and what he does. Okay. There is a big difference between what he says and what he does. And I'm not even going to go into that. But the reality is that if you look around and look at the people who actually, let me not go there. But the point is this. The things that he practices the most are those he talks against the most. That's his style. So when you see him talking against something, you know that he's the biggest practitioner of it. So, but let's move away from that.
All right.
My point is, so NRM, they don't stand for anything as a party. Nothing. Actually, if there's one thing, if I was pushed to the wall and I had to mention one thing that NRM stands for, it stands for impoverishing Ugandans. Now, that one Museveni has done very well. Very, very well. And he has done it so expertly, in such a way that actually the people whom he impoverishes blame themselves for being poor, not knowing that he's the one who is doing it. And there is a clear correlation. Let me explain this to you.
Okay.
There is a clear correlation between NRM and poverty. Now, go to the country, look at the elections, if they were actually free and fair. Look at the places where NRM actually wins elections. There's one thing they have in common: poverty. And look at the places that were this is something I can even prove in a university thesis, if called a hold, because there is a very clear, I can put up my thesis properly, and any professor or whatever would find that there is a clear correlation between NRM and poverty. I'll give you an example. You remember when Besigye came up as a viable opposition candidate, 2001, but mostly 2006. His almost the biggest support he had on the country was in Kasese side, Rwenzori side. Very strongly anti-government. What did they have? They had big trade here at the border from Kampala through the trains, train that was going there to the border. I was in Kasese. I asked the people there that what was the highest price, because those in the rural areas plant coffee, I mean cotton. I asked them, what's the highest price you have sold your cotton at? That was in 2021. They told me 2006. I told them how much were you selling it at? They said 3,600 a kilo. And they told me, because of those high prices, that apparent boom in selling of cotton prices, people built houses, and there was some relative prosperity. That was 2006. But they were very anti-government, extremely anti-government. Almost all the MPs there were, I think apart from Kiyonga, almost all of them were FDC. Then what does Museveni do? He takes away the railway on purpose, okay? Hits the trade, beats them down properly with poverty. Now, having been impoverished, guess whom they vote for? NRM. Now, that is true of northern Uganda. That is true of every place. Once people start thriving and doing business at a certain level and start aspiring to have a good life, something close to what we would call a middle-class life, they realize that there is a ceiling that has been erected above them, beyond which they are not supposed to go.
But
when they realize that,
when you look at statistics, available statistics from UBOS and all other government entities, and even some independent researchers, they indicate that poverty is actually going down. And there are interventions that are being undertaken by government, including wealth creation. We know Emioga, we know what the president has been doing, going around the country, urging people to engage into the money economy. You can't actually say that his strategy is to make people poor. I told you that when he says something, he's doing the opposite. Now, I want you to look at, your eyes can't lie, okay? Eyes don't lie. Look around. Tell me. I'll give you one example, which will tell you this. There are money lenders all across the country. Do you know the number one item that people use to borrow money? National IDs. That means somebody who uses national ID doesn't have anything to his name. That means when he walks out of his house, he has gone. The whole of him, his assets and liabilities are walking with him. That's why he uses a national ID. That may not be the case. Maybe it's the money lenders who are demanding. No, because the money lender would not demand for a national ID if he had the card of a car or even a card of a motorcycle. What is he going to do with the ID? But somebody, now that is a very good person. Go to those money lenders' offices, and I've been to some of them, and they have a whole stack of national IDs like this from people whom they've lent money. And when somebody uses, basically what he's doing is selling himself, he's selling his identity. Now, a good percentage of Ugandans leave home with all their assets and liabilities, even if the house catches fire. First of all, he's renting it, so he's not going to have any loss. So even if the house catches fire, just a few clothes and a few other personal, things of that nature. But otherwise, there is nothing he has no bank account, he has, no real asset. That's why they end up using national IDs. And now when you see that happening, you know that is biting poverty. Now, you can bring all the statistics you want in the world, but you know that is really biting poverty. And now the thing is, what Museveni has managed to do is to take the economy away from the ordinary Ugandan. So the national figures can appear rosy, and they're not bad at all when you look at them. But they do not filter down to the people down there. And it is very evident. I'll give you an example. In 1996, when he became president, Uganda was selling coffee on the world market worth $94 million. $94 million. Okay? I was in school at the time, very early, senior one in Amiriango. There were so many people in school with me whose parents were just coffee farmers, and they were paying school fees and living a good life. And you could see the coffee money. People would say, people were buying motorcycles, buying one from $94 million. Now it's up to almost $1.6 billion, almost 15 times more. But tell me where you're seeing the Mwanyi Zabala. Tell me the people who are paying school fees through coffee. And what? Not that we are not selling it, we are selling it, but what he does, and he has done this for fish, he has done this for all the other, for everything else. I'll tell you, in around 2010-12, Uganda was exporting almost $200 million of fish
to the European Union. And we had fish tycoons. I could name a few of them. I don't want to. There were people who you say, that one is a rich man from fish. Okay? I can mention like 2 or 3, whom you know. Then Museveni came up with the idea of, you know, illegal fishing. Now, illegal fishing, of course, there is illegal fishing of young, you know, immature fish. But the nets which do that are imported through here, and they even pay taxes. And then they come and confiscate them, and then. But the point is that they used the illegal fish to stop the practice of fishing generally. Now, we are still exporting a lot of fish, okay? But it is not the common person getting the money. So what I'm trying to tell you is that people like Museveni believe that poverty is a good, is a way to keep people humble and voting NRM. Right. I told you, if I wish I could come and, because I have done my research on this issue and I can prove a thesis that everywhere where people, I was trying to making a point, let me finish this before we, everywhere where people start aspiring to have a good life, where they're doing businesses and they get to a certain level, they realize there's a ceiling above which they can't move. And then they get frustrated and they all naturally become anti-government. Now, the way Museveni turns them to NRM voters is he beats them from up there and brings them down and they start aspiring for basics, soap and salt. Then they go back to voting NRM. Right. That has been the story of his 40 years. All now, right. That's why we say national economic empowerment. And that's why in the 2021 when I was standing, I was saying, financial liberation.
All right.